Hi. So after calming myself down, I got some orange juice to calm myself down, and really thinking it all through, I decided we learned about three people. We would read the notes of Valerie L. Thomas, who invented 3D imaging. Where are you, friend? Up here. I will read to you George Crumb, who invented the potato chip, and Dr. Percy. Why do I feel like that's not the name? Yep, I'm right. Dr. Percy Julian. Just because those are probably the most interesting stories of inventors in here that I think would make most sense for you guys to hear. I didn't want to go through all the notes because then we'd be here for about 45 minutes. But I mean, if people comment and let me know, Miss Jackson, I want to hear them all, I'll sit here and read them all. I just don't want to overwhelm your brain with too much information and then you can't really organize it. I'd rather give you a few amazing facts than a bunch of interesting facts that kind of overwhelmed you and you say, okay, what do I do with all of this? This is too much. So the first one is Dr. Valerie L. Thomas. I think this is written in Ella's perspective, just from how it kind of sounds. You let me know. And I'm going to actually hold it kind of weird because I want to be able to kind of show you what the page looks like while reading it, but it's kind of a big book. Okay. Good. If there's one thing I've learned from listening to Miss Simatal's stories about all these amazing inventors, it's that most of them had a really hard time being taken seriously as scientists just because they were Black. Now, imagine how much harder it was if you were Black and a woman. First, you had to overcome the whole race thing. Black people aren't smart enough to compete with white people, blah, blah, blah. Then you also had to put up with a whole bunch of crap about being a girl. Girls just aren't as smart as men, yada, yada, yada. That's what makes Dr. Valerie L. Thomas so cool. She worked her way up to associate chief of the Space Science Data Operations Office at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, retiring in 1995. Dr. Valerie L. Thomas worked in NASA? That's amazing. In 1980, she received a patent for an illusion transmitter, which creates three-dimensional projections. Many believe this is the future of television and video games. Thanks to Dr. Thomas, one day geeks everywhere will be romping through their World of Warcraft realms as if orcs were right in front of them. For the rest of us, doctors are also using their invention to create 3D images of the body to better diagnose patients. So again, thank her for that. Also, I don't think I reviewed the word patent with you guys. When an inventor gets a patent, it's basically them legally saying, I invented this first. No one can come after me and say that they invented this because I have a patent. I have written documentation that says this is my invention. And sometimes it was really hard for African American people to get patents because, again, what Ella said, they had to overcome the fact that, one, people had negative assumptions about people if they have African heritage, and two, people had negative assumptions of people if they were females. So the fact that she was able to get a patent, I mean, it was 1980, so it was a little later in the game than some other people that definitely struggled before her, but it still was a challenge. So thank you for overcoming that challenge, Valerie. I appreciate you as an African-American woman. So next person we're going to learn about is George Crumb. This story is really interesting to me. I promise I have orange juice. I'm not going to get any chips. I'm telling myself, Shania, we can do this. No chips, okay? Finally, something I really care about. Potato chips. Let's figure out who probably wrote this, Ella or Herbie. You tell me. Finally, something I really care about. Potato chips. I couldn't survive one day of school lunch without those yummy chips to keep my taste buds alive. Thank you, George Crumb, for inventing them in 1853. That's a long time ago, 1853. I thought they were more recent than that. Crumb was a chef at a fancy hotel in Saratoga Springs, New York. an hour away, Saratoga Springs, New York? Like right there? That's wild. So George Crumb he was in the state. He was close to us. So he was a chef in Saratoga Springs, New York. Half black, half Huron Indian, he must have felt a little intimidated when, as the story goes, Cornelius Vanderbilt, one of the wealthiest people in the United States, sent his meal back to the kitchen complaining that his potatoes were too soggy. Crumb sliced the potatoes thinner and cooked them, but Vanderbilt still sent them back. Crumb decided to teach this fussy moneybags a lesson. He sliced the potatoes as thin as coins and fried them in boiling oil. Now they were too crisp to be eaten with a fork, and the snobs back then wouldn't dare eat with their fingers. To Crumb's surprise, Vanderbilt loved them, and they soon became so popular that they were sold throughout the country. Crumb made enough money to open his own restaurant, which served his Saratoga chips and catered to some of the wealthiest people in the world. I think, don't at me on this, but I believe that Saratoga chips is still around to this day. I have to do some research on that, but I believe it is. Do some research yourself. Look up Saratoga chips if you need to be able to see it. Right here in the bottom, Saratoga chips. See if you can look that up for me and let me know if that's still around, because I think that is a company that's still around. But that's amazing. So potato chips are made literally in our backyard. That's I'm working so hard not to get any chips because that's amazing. I'm so appreciative of that. And the fact that he invented chips from, in a sense, as in layman's terms, he was being petty, honestly. So the fact that he was able to make chips off of, and make this huge company and make this, something amazing that we all enjoy off of almost a joke. Honestly, that's what I would call a happy accident. A lot of inventions come up that way, of just kind of happy accidents of, oh, I didn't know. That's why we always tell you to, ask questions, explore, try new things. You never know what you could create, because George Crumb, which that is his real name. I know it sounds silly, like he made it up, like almost like musicians do to fit kind of what they do. It's funny that his name's George Crumb, because what do potato chips make? Crumbs. Anyway, all right, last guy. This is basically a comic strip, and I'm gonna try my best to read it to you so you can see it. But this is Dr. Percy Julian, and it kind of just ties this book together really, really well. It's one of my favorite parts of the book. So this isn't a specific note. Actually, I believe this is a specific note that one of the friends made. I don't know who made it though, who wrote it though. I think Herbie wrote George Crumb. I don't know which friend wrote about Dr. Percy Julian. So we'll see. Okay. I feel like I'm just getting closer and closer to you guys. Sir Isaac Newton said, "If I have seen further, it is only by standing on the shoulders of giants." That is my favorite quote. I have to read that again. I really love that quote. Sir Isaac Newton said, "If I have seen further, it is only by standing on the shoulders of giants." That's how it was for Percy. His family always valued the importance of good education. Percy's grandfather, a former slave, had 2 of his fingers chopped off as punishment for learning to read or write, which is insane. That's something that, as Americans, we can, and a lot of other people in different countries, but definitely as Americans, you can just learn whenever you want to. We encourage it. We push it. It's free. So the fact that he got punished so harshly for doing something that honestly should just be a human right is insane to me. Percy's grandmother, who once picked 340 pounds of cotton in one day, worked and saved her whole life to send her son James to private school. James, Percy's father, was a voracious reader who filled their home with books and loved to talk to his children about the things he read. Percy told this story about something that happened at his college graduation. At commencement time, my great-grandmother bared her shoulders and showed me for the first time the deep scars that remained from a beating she had received during the Civil War, during the waning days of the Civil War. She went through the Negro quarters and cried out, "Get yourselves ready, children. The Yankees are coming. The Lord has heard our prayers." So basically, Dr. Percy Julian's great-grandmother was basically got whipped for telling the other slaves, "Hey, freedom's coming. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Freedom's coming." And it's a lot to be able to, say at his graduation that, hey, and this is him right here, that, hey, I went through a lot just for you to be able to stand here. You have no idea what we've gone through. And she actually showed, this is what I went through for you. And I'm so happy you used it for good instead of just taking it for granted. You really showed that you appreciated what we did to help you be great, which is it's just amazing. And then proudly, his great-grandmother she took my Phi Beta Kappa key in her hand and said, "This is worth all the scars." The shoulders Percy stood on were strong enough to inspire a whole family into the freedom that an education brings. And I want to just end it there because that's incredible to me. Just, you never know what other people went through in order for you to have the opportunities that you have now. And you never know what people went through in order for you to have the things that you have now. Like Dr. Percy Julian, he created pain relieving medicine that many, many people use today. And I don't know what has been invented since then based on what Dr. Percy Julian has invented. Because remember, there are inventors and innovators. And innovators are people who look at an invention and say, how can I make it better? If none of these people became inventors or innovators, things may not be as advanced as they are today. They might not be as good quality as they are today. We wouldn't have the lives we have today if it wasn't for hardworking, dedicated people like all of these amazing men and women. Especially the women, because honestly, you had to work twice as hard. You had to work towards, hey, don't have negative assumptions of me because of my heritage, but also don't have a negative assumptions of me because of my gender. They had a lot to fight against. And a lot of times you literally risked your life. Dr. Percy Julian's grandfather got his fingers chopped off for this, So it's just insane what we as people take for granted sometimes. Now, this is what we're going to do for next week, okay? There's a chance I may come back in and read you some of the longer biographies of other of other inventors. For example, where is my main man's at? For example, Louis Latimer, we may explore him a little bit more. Or we may get into some other books that I wanted to show you guys. So we have The Dreamer, which don't get worried about the size of it. The pages honestly don't have many words on them at all. It's a very, very quick read. But this is a biography of Pam Munoz Ryan, which is really, really interesting to be able to, actually, let me fact check that. I can't remember who it's a biography of. Why is his name slipping my head? Last name is Neftali. I'm going to go and fact check myself. I should have written that down. I'm so sorry. But this is a biography of an amazing Latino author. And I absolutely adore this text because it's written like a narrative text. It's not written in, this person was born here, then they went here. Then it's very much written like a story. If I didn't tell you it was a biography, you probably wouldn't have known. It's really, really interesting. Then we have this eerie book called Clockwise. Now, I'm not going to tell you much about this one just because it's a little creepy and I want to sleep well tonight. But if you're into more of, kind of like the creepier, scary story kind of scene, we can easily explore this book. This book also isn't too long, and it also has pictures. Both of these actually have some pictures in them, which I also love. Or we can look into my second main man, Mr. Nelson Mandela. Now, this is a biography. It's not written as much like a story, but there are so many vibrant pictures that I'd love to introduce. And because we're already on the topic of appreciating the things we have around us, this man was a huge example of why it's important to appreciate what we have around us and really allow ourselves to stand on the shoulders of giants and use at what our ancestors have done, what people have done before us, as kind of just our advantage, using it at our advantage. So let me know which one of those texts you're interested in, and then we'll start it up again on Monday. I love you guys. I miss you guys. I am so happy we got a chance to go through this book. Let me know if you have any more questions, if you want to hear any more of the notes that the friends took. I'm really, 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 really happy we got a chance to experience this together, and I can't wait to experience more texts together. All right. I love you guys. I miss you guys. Remember, you are excellent, and we don't quit. By the way, I figured out that I messed that up in the last video, but I was not going back to record it. So it was just, we don't give up. We don't quit. It's synonyms. Same. It's fine. All right. Bye, guys.